name is John Cena!
Super Saiyan's glow, I will always stay gold.
This is Nerdcore Absolution. Come to peace with your inner nerd, and after you can stay gold like T.O.M. Chillin' out the galaxy and we know him. Putting tunes up that'll keep you up. Glued to the screen like you do too much. The galaxy is ours, the sun and the stars. Tsunamis on and chillin' hard.
Hey there, my Tsunami generation. It is I, your captain of the Absolution Network, Thomas Mattis, and welcome to the Absolution Network's AnimeNEXT 2016 convention special. On this video, we have many great interviews in this two-part special. Just to go over what I'll be talking about, first I'm going to give my sort of views on AnimeNEXT 2016, along with sharing some swag. Then we'll have a 45-minute interview with Helen McCarthy, who wrote the Anime Encyclopedia, and the wonderful time I got to spend with her. A great interview filled with great discussion and debate about anime. That was wonderful to have. She's a wonderful woman. And then, of course, part two, which you would want to tune in a couple days later to see part two, features interviews with Erica Menendez, who played the lead in Kill la Kill, Todd Hapricorn, who's played the lead in many animes, including Fairy Tail, and Studio Trigger, who worked on Kill la Kill, or should say created Kill la Kill. Their new series, Conniver, is out on Crunchyroll. They also did Inferno Cop, and they've also worked on series such like Hero Man, Fooly Cooly. A lot of them were ex-Gynax guys, so they worked on Fooly Cooly, they worked on Evangelion, series like that. So, and of course, can't forget from last summer, Ninja Slayers. And of course, at the very end, we saved the best for last, the legend, Charles Dunbar. Hi, Charles. I get to talk with him a little bit, talk about AnimeNEXT, talk about a bunch of different things. So that's all here for the Absolution Network Convention Special. Again, it's been a week, so I've had time to digest my feelings for AnimeNEXT. And the one thing I keep saying about AnimeNEXT 2016 is that definitely this was a test year. You know, again, moving from its old location in New Brunswick, not directly New Brunswick, it's Somerset, but part of the New Brunswick cityscape, basically. But moving from there to AnimeNEXT, to Atlantic City, I think a lot of people had trepidations and questions, and definitely for, I think, Northern Jersey and sort of New York State folks, they didn't come because, again, they wanted to see how it played out. Though, again, I think sort of Southern Jersey and Delaware and those, a lot of it there wasn't so much of a dip in attendance. I also felt this played out in cosplay. Like, there was creativity and there was great cosplay, but it wasn't as much as I usually like. AnimeNEXT, I mean, Otakon is the place where there's like an abundance of cosplay, but at AnimeNEXT, I always look forward to the creativity. And as an example, sort of trends that I hope to see at Otakon. And I didn't feel like that was there this year. And again, I just think that, again, a lot of people held back. And I don't say that as a bad thing, but just, again, it was very evident to the feelings that people had for testing things out. That being said, I think thanks to the AnimeNEXT convention staff, the convention was a tremendous success, and I think next year a lot of people are going to be coming back, particularly from Northern Jersey and New York, because they're going to hear how great it was, and they're going to come, and I think attendance is skyrocket, creativity skyrocket, people are coming out of their shell. And there are a few things which I'll go over in a second, but still just amazing. First off, I want to give, like I said, give a big shout out to the convention staff of AnimeNEXT, in particular press, Chris Barber, his brother, so professional, so wonderful. Finally got that interview with Trigger, guys. I'm very happy. You don't understand, for past couple of years, I just kept, for whatever reason, whether I was late at the time, place, or whatever, or I misunderstood the time, kept missing Trigger, and finally got to interview them, which was amazing. You'll see that, like I said, in part 2 of this convention special to come out in a couple days. But very professional, great. Vincent over at Panels, wonderful to talk with him. He was amazing. Had me help kick off the convention with the 10 a.m. panel, which forced me to have to leave at 4:30 in the morning to make sure I got to the convention on time, because where I am in Jersey, I had to catch a light rail to Camden, survive Camden, and then catch a bus to Atlantic City. And then, of course, coming home, I was able to, because the train station is actually connected to the convention center, I caught the train to that same light rail, now that I know there's a station there, because Matt didn't show his station, and was able to catch that light rail home. So, outside of the sort of having to get up early and feeling very tired, and which I think caused me to pull something, actually, because I had a hard time walking. That's on me. That's not on the convention. That's own personal experience. But still, can't thank him enough for allowing me to open up the convention with the Tsunami panel, which I wish I had video for. I did videotape it, and I have the video, but unfortunately somebody accidentally hit the camera and moved it so it's only focused on the screen. Mind you, this was a panel that had 162 seats, and yet that panel was standing room only. There was at least 200 people in there. I'll maybe show the video to prove my evidence so people can see that I'm not lying. But yeah, so yeah, that panel was a tremendous success to kick off the convention. And it allowed me to learn how to evolve that panel too, because 2 hours is definitely too long of a time for a panel. Still packed all the way through. But that was great. The setup is great. AnimeNEXT, or should I say the Atlantic City Convention Center, everything was indoors, 4 floors. It was air conditioned, even though with all the people walking around, it never felt hot. A lot of great light coming in, very bright. That created some shadow problems as far as taking pictures, but not too bad. This lets you know the setup. The first floor is where everybody came in. A lot of people were taking pictures there. Second floor was registration, and right next to it was the entrance to the dealer's room and Artist Alley, which was put together, and a very big hall. Further down to the northern end was the main event hall. But what they did is, like, at the south end was they had a hall where it was the queue center, and what they would have is people wait in the queue hall, and then they would bring them all the way down to the northern end for the main events, like Masquerade or concerts. I don't know if that would work. I think they need to do better. It was an attempt to make sure lines weren't interfering with people walking, but yeah, maybe have it just down south or whatever. It's just I don't know what the answer is, but it created some confusion, especially if you're trying to get to the dealer's room. You had to wait for the parade to walk by. But that's a small complaint. Floor 3 had all the panels, and then 4th floor had things like Manga Library, tabletop gaming rooms. Also in 3 was the video room. One small complaint is that I really couldn't find out what was playing. So I didn't really visit the video rooms that much. I would have visited more if I could have seen what was playing. So I didn't really feel that But also on the 4th floor, by the way, was the video game room, which was absolutely amazing. I finally won a Street Fighter V fight. I beat somebody using Laura on the actual Street Fighter V arcade machine, not like on a console version, but an arcade machine. That was great. A lot of great games that I got to try. One was a sniper game where to actually shoot the guy, you had to stare through the scope, which was magnified. That was actually great. I played some Initial D, some of the rhythm games. All that was wonderful. And there was some good cosplay, as you can see on my photo albums. So overall, AnimeNEXT 2016 was a wonderful experience, a great con, especially considering, like I said, the testing, it was really a test phase. A lot of people were holding back to see what was happening, but I think once people see how great it was next year, I think it's going to explode. Again, like I said, I thought the convention staff did a great job. One of the things that's a great example of this is the shuttle service, which was free for convention goers, that shuttle people from the convention center back to the hotel. So instead of since I was staying at the Valley, instead of a 20-minute walk, even though it's a straight shot down the street, but instead of a 20-minute walk, I could hop on the shuttle, get to my hotel, put my stuff away, come back down, wait for the shuttle, and basically be back to the convention center within a half hour. If I needed to go back to the hotel room for something, or even if I just went back to the hotel or something to eat something, I could be back in 45 minutes, whatever it was. So that was a tremendous success. That made the convention center so that much more accessible. So, yeah. Thumbs all the way up for AnimeNEXT 2016. Pretty much 9 out of 10 if I had to rate it on a number system, or 4 out of 5, whichever rating system you want to go for. Yeah, tremendous, and I think a lot of people are going to come next year for AnimeNEXT 2017. Before we get into the interviews, I just want to go over some con swag I want to share with you. From Discount Anime, I picked up some DVDs. I picked up Agent Kira, which you've seen Anime Abandoned, you know all about that. And I picked up part 2 of Queen's Blade from the Anime Works. I'm trying to remember it. It's not a. I want to say it's Media Blast that did this. I'm trying to remember. And by the way, Agent Kira, Bandai. So I picked up that real cheap. I mean, $5, $12. Not bad pricing, really, overall. Over at Funimation, I bought the first season of Freezing, which is a series I really enjoy. And a women's wrestling anime called Wanna Be the Strongest in the World, which is a really good anime. I don't know if I got a chance to actually review it. I know I was watching it to review it and stuff fell through. I don't actually have the DVD part. I only have the Blu-ray part because I let the DVD part to Charles because he saw it and thought it was very interesting. So he's checking it out now, and I hope he enjoys it. Those are the DVDs I bought. I have a poster that's right behind me that I don't want to unroll right now. But I got a Beauty and the Beast movie poster, which I plan on putting in my room. And I got some Gundam model kits. I actually can see one here. This I did not pick up at AnimeNEXT. That was actually my birthday present all the way back in September. And I'm only now finally getting to get some work done on it, actually. But I picked up Shining Gundam. I have Burning Gundam. Like I said, I have Try Burning Gundam. This is from Build-A-Gundam, by the way. The Burning Gundam I have is from the original G Gundam. And of course, this is the first form Shining Gundam. And then also from the recent series, which just debuted on Tsunami, Iron Blood Orphans. This is apparently the 6th form of Barbaros. So I picked that up. So that's basically my console. I have some other things that I can't share. I'm sure there's a lot of friends saying, surprise, surprise, but you know. Anyways, that's it for me. I've taken up enough of your time. Coming up next, my interview with Helen McCarthy, the wonderful interview that I'm absolutely sure you're going to enjoy. And make sure you stay tuned and check back in a couple days for part 2 featuring Erica Menendez, because it's the morning I can speak, Todd Hapricorn, Studio Trigger, and of course Cheryl Slumbar on part 2. And until next time, my Toonami generation, stay golden. Hey there, Toonami generation, and welcome to AnimeNEXT 2016. Here with the first interview, we have Helen McCarthy, who worked on the Anime Encyclopedia. Am I right?
Yeah.
And has been working on anime magazines in the UK for 25 years now.
25 years, yeah.
So she goes farther back than me. I started in '93.
Oh, I was working on anime for 10 years before that.
Really?
I just couldn't get a magazine off the ground.
Oh. Working anime as far as just in magazines or on the actual product?
No, at that time there were no actual products, not in Britain. We didn't get our first anime release till 1990. Although we had a little bit of anime on TV, mostly it wasn't described as anime. It was just packaged as a cartoon in the same way it was in America. Everybody remembers Jim Terry's Force 5. It's only otaku and nerds like us who know what the component parts of Jim Terry's Force 5 actually were, and that they weren't Jim Terry's at all.
Yeah.
So we had Marine Boy on BBC TV, which was really, really popular. Loads of kids just loved it, but they didn't know it was Japanese. And then as time went on, we had other things coming up on TV in kids' slots. And Japanese animation was then seen by the animation world and the TV world as just, Saturday morning pack for kids. And when I realised that it was something more and began to see some of the anime that was circulating in Europe translated and localised in European languages, I decided there'd better be a book about it. So when I couldn't find one, and there wasn't one anywhere in English, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to write this if I want to read it. And that eventually became the Anime Encyclopedia, which only took 20 years from idea to reality. And that, easy. I always do things the short way.
Well, Sloan City does win the race.
Yeah, it's weird, but in order to get to the position to write the book I wanted to write, I got a fandom together, helped to found British Anime Fandom, and founded a newsletter which then became a magazine for a series of wonderful good fortune and help from many, many people. And then around the time that we started the magazine, the first official anime video release in Britain was Akira, which had also done quite well in cinemas around the country. And so we were in position, we had our magazine going when people started to say this Japanese animation stuff, this Akira, this is so cool, we want to know more. And I'd been writing for any magazines or newspapers I could interest, just little pieces here and there, for a long time. And they started to call me and say, hey, this anime thing, this Akira thing, tell us a bit more about it. So we gradually started to create kind of a media buzz. And Britain picked up on this quite quickly. And then in the following year, the company that put out Akira, Island World Communications, founded a label called Manga Video, which you in America now know very well because it's moved over to America and become part of an American corporation. But it was a British label, and it was set up particularly because the guy who owned Island World Communications, the rock promoter Chris Blackwell, decided that anime was going to be the new rock and roll.
And I think in a way he's right.
He may be, but it's a lot of other things apart from the new rock and roll. Of course, as a rock and reggae guy, he's framing it the way he sees it. Yeah.
So you were sort of getting into it right off the bat. The first question that I had for you was going to be, for you, how have you seen anime change in the past 25 years?
I've seen two really interesting things happen. The first is that I always believed that anime would not go mainstream until we had mass market TV, daytime TV releases. Because what made anime so big and so enduring in Japan isn't the Osamu Tezukas, isn't the Hayao Miyazakis. It's the fact that you could watch it for free at home on your TV. It didn't cost you anything. And so kids could rush home from work, from school, and dads could rush home from work for their favourite cartoon every week, and it didn't cost them money. And that was what enabled anime to grow the fan base it had in Japan and grow the merchandising base it had in Japan. Because when something that doesn't cost you money becomes something that you're borderline addicted to that you have to see every week. Then, of course, all the stuff that you buy as spin-offs does cost you money, but you don't mind that because the show doesn't cost you anything and you perceive you're getting value that you've built up by your relationship with the show from the spin-off. Look at the money that Harry Potter merchandise generates. Look at the money that Star Trek merchandise has generated down the years. Would Paramount still be operational as a studio without the franchise? It's a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The American Godzilla movie, one of the suckiest movies ever made.
You're talking about the 98 version.
The 98 version, yeah.
And now we have two, so we have to clarify.
Well, the second one I never think of as the American Godzilla movie because it's actually Welsh, because the director was a Welshman. But the American non-Welsh Godzilla movie, should we say, that completely sucked, and it bombed at the cinemas, and it took a long time to break even until you factored in the merchandise, and then it went really, really well. So it's that factor of being able to see it on TV, I always believed would make the difference for anime. But what I didn't see, and what none of us predicted, was broadband. Because, of course, broadband around the turn of this century immediately made it possible for you to stream, providing you had a decent broadband connection, anything from anywhere in the world that anybody put online. So there you have anime, free at the point of consumption. All right, it's illegal a lot of the time, but the industry corrected itself, as industries generally do. The Japanese industry decided it was going to do deals with former pirates and turn them respectable, and make, instead of creating a huge fuss and giving money to lawyers, which nobody in their right mind ever does, honestly, nobody ever wins except lawyers if you sue people. They decided to make a sensible accommodation with the way the market was going, and to actually use illicit streaming to turn it into licit streaming. And so we got the situation we've got today, where most fans cannot imagine a world in which they couldn't click on their computer and watch subtitled a show that was screened last night in Japan. That's mind-blowing. And it only happened because we've got fast, effective broadband delivery.
Those are two wonderful answers. I completely agree with you on the television. You know, again, just like I said, we're part of the Toonami generation. Our site is dedicated to Toonami, and really when you talk about, particularly in America, it's Toonami that really kickstarted for so many people. I did a panel where there's so many people, because of Toonami, they got to experience anime. And I also completely agree with you on the internet. I think Japan is using that to continue to have a stronghold on, like, because they have like the 18-month window that they like to, before like allowing American companies to like put it on DVD, which frustrates I think a lot of people. But at the same point in time, it's they can point to like, well, you have it for free on the subtitle. But I completely agree with both of those points.
Well, the acceleration of demand this century has been particularly surprising. We have become a society for which instant gratification actually means give it to me now. I don't want to pay you for it, but give it to me now. It's almost like we're all highwaymen. We're all media bandits. We're all riding up to media creators and saying, give me your product immediately because I want it. And maybe I'll give you some money later if I feel like it.
I can definitely see that point. See, I also see it because, like, I'm a Super Sentai fan, and nobody is bringing Super Sentai or Kamen Rider over to America, so, like, my only option at that point is to watch.
Well, all those great tokusatsu shows, you know, how are we not dubbing them? I mean, they are so insane. Garo! Oh, God, Garo!
Thankfully, we have Funimation doing the anime.
Yes.
So, particularly because you're from the UK, how is anime different in the UK than it is in the US?
Well, we've had a very different journey than you. If you look at it historically, and I am primarily a historian as a writer, the US got anime on TV as consciously anime on TV before the UK did. Because you had the Star Blazers boom, and you had a lot of fans who had connections on US bases who were getting tapes from Japan and showing them around at conventions. So people became aware of anime as anime, probably about through the massive fandom rather than the massive population, of course, probably about 10 years before we did in the UK. But then we had video labels, faster and sexier and sassier than you did very early on. You had some great video labels, you had US renditions, you had various other things. But we had a rock promoter behind our video boom, and that obviously drove it in different directions. No, positive. Chris Blackwell decided that the money market was pre-15-year-old boys. And you market in specific ways to pre-15-year-old boys that are wonderful for those consumers, but not necessarily either reassuring or wonderful for the industry or the rest of the market. He sold anime through a process called 15ing, which means, well, my friend Jonathan Clements coined the term 15ing. It means that you take a perfectly innocent, straightforward Japanese script and you insert into the English version as many swear words and as many incredibly rude expressions as you possibly can.
This sounds exactly like actually an anime I love that was dubbed over here called Ghost Stories.
Oh yeah.
By at the time ADV, which I love that dub because they said the Japanese said you can do whatever you want with it,
yeah,
but
so they did.
Yeah.
but the aim of 15ing is to get from the British Board of Film Certification a 15 certificate. Now, not all your viewers may be aware that in Britain you can't release anything on video without a BBFC certificate, for which you as the distributor have to pay. But without that certificate you don't get your release. So the aim was to calculate the level of offensiveness in the script so that it would be guaranteed a 15 but not an 18, because that meant that boys under the age of 15 who wouldn't dream of watching a kid's video would say, 15, I'm going to have that, that is so cool, and get older brothers or friends to buy it for them. And they did really well on this. But of course, when you get lines inserted into a script like, I'm going to rip your head off and piss down your neck, where they didn't previously exist, people's mothers have issues with this. You know, women have issues with this. Sane people have issues with this. So it didn't help to sell anime to a wider market. And what happened as a result was that we had several other labels spring up independently in Britain, and we were doing our own dubbing in Britain while you guys were still subtitling over here. We had the first dub studios, I believe. Well, no, because Carl Nashek had one at Streamline, that's right. I miss Carl. I miss Carl so much, wow. But we had 5 or 6 British labels doing British dubbed releases. And then Manga Entertainment moved over to the USA. And gradually the British industry died out because it was cheaper to have US stuff brought over here than to dub it in Britain and then dub it again in the US. So we've seen a lot of changes in our fandom, and we've seen a lot of lack of autonomy in our. But what we have also seen is that, again, going to the turn of this century, we went from being a relatively small fandom, which I think could also be said of you in the States, with good-sized conventions, good fun, nice things happening, to suddenly being a major media explosion. Our biggest anime convention is a commercial con, like a creation con, called MCM Expo in London. It's also held in Birmingham, but they get like 70,000, 80,000 people through there in the course of a weekend. They get almost Comic-A levels of numbers of cosplayers, and that's changed completely. We still have small fan cons. Yeah. We still have 500, 600, 1,000 person cons where people just go to hang out together with other core nerds. Mm-hmm. But we have this huge number of kids who are seeing MCM Expo in the media, in the mass mainstream media, which is so cool, and saying, wow, I love anime. I could cosplay Satsuki if I can go down there. Hey, how much did it cost to get a ticket? Hey, how much would it cost me to get down there on the train? They're getting excited and getting involved and getting engaged, and then they start saying, wow, MCM Expo website, are the links, where are we going? The internet is enabling anime to spread like a viral infection. And it's fabulous, it's wonderful, it's bringing people in, which is great. But what I think we can always do better, and what I think conventions like the US ones tend to do better than the British ones, simply because they're bigger, is fan conventions, that is, not commercial cons, is to reach out to young fans, show them that this is a really positive universe, that whatever characters might do, whatever might happen in the movies, what we do as fans is we respect each other, we support each other, we don't diss each other. we love each other, we do everything we can for each other. And if we can bring young people into a circle like that, where it's simply a community of peers and you can be respected for who you are, I think that's something that modern society is losing, and that's a wonderful thing.
Oh, certainly, I think in recent years we've just definitely become more tribal on political spectrums and everything, and that's why sometimes it actually frustrates me because they're talking about my generation who grew up on anime and we're part of this community, and they're saying we're disrespectful of other people, and it's like, what do you mean? Do you actually know us?
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you on that.
That's it, and politicians in both our countries at the moment, because you have an election coming up,
Yeah.
and we've got a referendum on whether to stay as part of the European Union coming up. And in both our countries, I think our politicians are insulting our intelligence. I mean, the British Prime Minister went on TV and in the media saying that if we leave the EU, our partners, France and Germany, who are supposed to be our friends in this adventure, may be so upset with us that they will start a little war in Europe. I mean, that's insane. If people are going to bully us into staying in their club by saying we'll start a war if you don't, do we want to be part of that club? And why would a responsible politician say that in public? It's just, politicians have become so juvenile.
Because fear is
Fear
a
is
wonderful
an
influence.
yeah. Well,
Just
that's-
ask the scarecrow.
I think you get more maturity and more intelligence in an anime convention room, anywhere on the floor, than you do, sadly, in the great houses of politics.
I can't agree more. So for you, what do you feel is the biggest difficulty for Japanese anime to break through to the next plateau as far as Western markets being more successful? Because, and I made mention earlier, because you have that 18-month window, because they still are focused on, like, you know, the domestic sell of their DVDs, and so it's like there just seems to be like there's this one more glass ceiling that they can break through it and just explode even more.
It's difficult for Japan. You've got to remember that they're like the French market. The French have always ferociously protected their language as part of their culture. And French cinema is distinctive and revered around the world because they will not do deals with Hollywood. They'll do, you know, translation deals and so on, obviously subtitle deals, but they value the fact that their French language makes them unique, and that the culture that they've lived in for so many hundreds of years gives them a unique take on cinema. Paris, Saint-Germain, all the great studios, they don't want to be Hollywood. They don't want to work in Hollywood. Fine to work with Hollywood, but they don't want to do it. And Japan at the moment, particularly the anime industry, is facing a real difficulty. They are protected by their language, but that protection is rapidly eroding. And we're seeing in all the co-production deals that are coming through the start of the line of ants, if I could put it that way. The bridgehead that is going to go into your industry and eat it out and crumble it from within. And maybe then you will explode. And maybe then you will make a lot of money, but you won't be the same as you were. Now, nothing stays the same. Change is the law of nature. You can't fight entropy. But what we love about anime as fans, all of us, British, American, French, is the fact that it's not us. We love anime because it's Japanese. Now, if you make a version of Ghost in the Shell with Motoko Kusanagi played by a white bird, you might say, it's not a big deal, she's a robot. What's the matter? There are a lot of Asian actresses in America who are saying, actually, it's a big deal for us because we're underrepresented in work, and you could give this to us. We've got a lot of good people here. You could make one of us a breakthrough star like Daisy Ridley just became in Star Wars, and you could actually show that Asian American actresses are important and capable and respected. But Scarlett Johansson is massively bankable. You can always sell Scarlett Johansson. So it's a dilemma. And for Japan, it's even more of a dilemma, because when Motoko Kusanagi is played by Scarlett Johansson in an American scripted film which has never had a Japanese language script, where are you? It's really, it's worrying.
My computer functions.
So, I do this all the time. I do this all the time. But it is worrying me a lot that the more that we allow world entertainment, and particularly anime, to become Americanized, to become localized, the more we make it not anime. Now that can work really well for the anime industry. There are a couple of cases of things that have been localized for India. Star of the Giants was reversioned for the Indian market with Indian characters, Indian names. It's doing great over there. So the studio that owns the rights in Star of the Giants is raking in money, and they still have the original Star of the Giants. That's not a problem. The classic issues are still going there. But there's a whole generation of new fans now out in India who are thinking, wow, this anime stuff. And that means that Indian movie makers and Indian TV makers, who are one of the biggest markets in the world, the Indian market for video entertainment is insane. They're looking at it saying, we have people who are used to rocking up at the cinema and spending 4 or 5 hours there watching 2 features, having lunch, chatting to their friends. Now, if we can get the kids in to see this Japanese stuff, that's fantastic. What else can we localize? And in this case, that's going into Indian languages, being Indian localized for a very specific market. It takes nothing from the Japanese. But when we start creating projects and saying this is anime, even though it's not been created in Japan, it's not been created by Japanese people, it's not been designed by Japanese people, how is that anime?
Well,
It's difficult.
that does bring up a good question, because that goes right into what my next question is. Because I agree with you, though, that for me, what makes Japanese anime great is the Japaneseness. It's their culture. I'm a huge ecchi fan, so again, but that have that type of comedy that comes from Japanese culture,
exactly.
which has no fear about nudity or things like that.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've looked at, looking at animation over the past 75 years, its evolution, I feel that there can be something called American anime, because I see anime more as a style of animation. And looking at it through that prism, I came up with this theory I called the Walt Disney theory of animation categorization, where there's 3 core techniques. There's stop motion live action, traditional hand-drawn, and there's modern CG. And stop motion live action uses puppets. It's the art of movement. Hand-drawn is sort of the art of the story, and for me there's cartoon and anime. And then with CG, it's sort of the idea of the art of illusion, to where there's realistic and then there's photorealistic. So for instance, like there's Finding Dory, which would be realistic, or Cars, but then there's the photorealistic, like Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. And so in doing the work, and this I'm trying to continue because I'm going back to college and I'm trying to do this work. So the way I look at it's like with hand drawn, I see it as a sliding scale, to where for me anime is more dramatic. Like if I put it like TV shows, like cartoon is a sitcom, it's Seinfeld. It's Big Bang Theory, if you know those shows over.
It's Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. Whereas anime is more dramatic shows, like Game of Thrones, or not necessarily that it has to be fantasy, but it has a little bit more drama to it, and it's also camera movements. It's like more advanced camera movements, more like I say that, like, to me, the Godfather sort of modern anime, I point to Walt Disney's Sleeping Beauty. And I always look at the bridge scene where Aurora is walking over the bridge, and then you have the camera diving and going under the bridge to the prince. And so, like, that's a very advanced camera move. So I sort of look at it as a style. So I guess my question in preferencing all of that is, do you think there can be such a thing as American anime or even UK anime, to where it's not so much that it needs to come from Japan, but you have UK animators and American animators creating anime in our country?
Why would you? Why would you? That's the question. You have fabulous animators doing wonderful creative work in America. We have great animators in Britain doing wonderful creative work. Astonishing animators in France, in Canada, in Poland, all over the world. Why would you want them to do anime? What would you gain except being able to say, we do anime in America? I think America is a very, very young country. Hell, you consider things that were built 100 years ago old. We have things in our country that were built 5,000 years ago. We had an empire for 500 years before we lost it. We have walked where you're walking right now. Not necessarily that the same things have happened, but one of the things that you learn when you have an empire is that in the early stages, as with the Romans, as with the Assyrians, as with every empire that's ever been, you want to write Rome on everything. Stop wanting to write America on everything. Let anime be itself. Let anime be an expression of the spirit of Japan. Also, before you start to think about making American anime or British anime, know what anime is. Because our countries have cherry-picked the history of anime for those things that suit our particular culture. Anime is one of the things I've been privileged to learn over the past 1981 to now 35 years, is that anime is much more diverse than we give it credit for. It includes incredibly slow, high art movies of great physical and sensual beauty, but absolutely no dynamic storytelling at all. And they are fabulous. It includes sophisticated adult cartoons with wit and humour and style, and they are fabulous. It includes little kids' cartoons with innocence and wide-eyed charm, and they are fabulous. It includes things like the action-adventure shows and the giant robot shows and the schoolgirl warrior shows, and they are fabulous. It includes shows about every kind of relationship, every kind of human activity. They are all fabulous. We don't see most of those shows. We tend only to see one particular type of show, which is the show that commercial companies decide will sell in America, in Britain, in France, in Germany. All the shows that online companies decide will sell. But if you look at the anime that comes out in any given year in Japan, not all of it makes its way over here by any stretch of the imagination. And if you look at the diversity of small studio anime, short form anime, there is amazing work being done there that we never see. So my answer to your question is really another question. Not could there be American and British anime, but why would there be American and British anime? I don't need John Lasseter to make anime because he's so fucking good at being John Lasseter. I don't need Aardman Animation to make anime because they're astonishing. I don't want Weta Workshop to make anime because they totally fucking Kong. And also, they don't need to make anime, they're Weta. Let's just stop trying to take over stuff that we think is cool and stand outside it and say, you are cool. I didn't make you, but I love you.
I completely see that point, but I also sort of counter with the question is, because at the end of the day, artists are influenced by what they grew up with, and there's so many of us who want to be artists who are influenced by that style, and so it's just, I guess the part of the reason I approach that from the way I'm approaching it is people saying, oh, you can't do anime because you're Japanese. And I just saying, like, that's just one definition and one way of looking at it. The world is always so many different points of view. And the other reason I do it is I want people to see that the reason we love Japanese anime is its Japaneseness. It's not the animation part. It's the Japanese culture or the work of a Japanese artist put into it.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's why I approach it from, it's about the artist. And so I think an American artist can create anime, but what makes it American anime is the Americanizations that he can put into it, as long as he has sort of some control of the story, obviously. But I completely see your point of view, because again, like I said, I did a whole thing about it. It's like there's three definitions of anime. There's anime is just a word for Japanese cartoons, anime as Japanese animation of an indicative style, and then the definition that I'm coming at. But that was really a wonderful answer to my question.
Well, I think if you look at it, there is already American anime. Because if you go to Japan, every single piece of animation is described as anime. Pokemon is anime. So is Sleeping Beauty by Disney. So is Bambi. So is Cars. They're all anime. If you come over here and say Cars is anime, people will scratch their heads, and the malls will say, and the big multiplexes will say, well, we can get houses of like half the size for a Japanese cartoon for a week. We can pack the cinema for 18 weeks on John Lasseter's Cars, a great American cartoon. It's just a matter of words. Anime means animation in Japanese. We use it to say to ourselves, we're looking at Japanese animation. If we start saying to ourselves, anime can mean animation that's made anywhere, what's the point of us using the words? We already have a perfectly good word, animation, in English. The French have a perfectly good word in French. The Italians have a perfectly good word in Italian. Why would we want to start using the word anime for cartoons that aren't made in Japan, when the only point of us using a Japanese word in an English conversation is to tell each other that we're speaking about a Japanese object? If you were going to say, I'm going to go out for fried rice, would you say I'm going out for sushi rice? Of course you wouldn't. If you were going to say, I think I'm going to go out for pasta, you wouldn't say, oh, I'm going out for ramen. Japanese words in English conversations, in my view, and it's only my view, they're only useful if they describe Japanese things. Otherwise, I might as well just say, I watched a really cool Satoshi Kon cartoon last night. And that would be accurate because we're both speaking English. Satoshi Kon makes cartoons. It's fine. Now, I know there are people out there who are going to splutter and say, you can't describe Satoshi Kon's work as a mere cartoon. But he was happy to. He called it anime. So to me, the most useful way to use a Japanese term like anime or manga in an English conversation or a French conversation is to use it to describe Japanese stuff. Otherwise, it starts to blur the line of what we're talking about. And that's my main reason. I think labels should tell you what's in the tin. I mean, if you open the tin labeled peaches and what you find inside is peas, that's your dinner plans bloke. It might be creative, it might be fun, but that's your dinner plans bloke.
I think this has just been a great discussion. It's a great debate back and forth. One more question, you said? Okay. So I guess that ends with our last question is, one of the things I'm doing this year is I'm flipping the switch. I'm giving you the power, and I want you to ask me a question that you would like to know. As me being an anime fan who started in 1993 with Booster or MacGyver.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Booster or MacGyver is a really interesting anime. I don't know if you know this, but in Britain it was actually sold one episode per tape for the approximate price for kids' pocket money every week. Now, one episode per tape, people would scream and tear their hair out in grown-up fandom and say, this is wholly unreasonable. But you think, you're a 9-year-old boy, Booster or MacGyver is out, you know it's the coolest thing ever. And you know that because that tape is coming in at $4.99, and you normally get $5 from your dad on a Friday, you can go out and buy that tape every week with your own money. You don't have to ask your mom about it and have her say it's violent. Booster or MacGyver became one of the most successful best-selling series of its day in Britain on that one brilliant marketing concept. And a few years ago, I gave a talk at the Barbican to which to show the new Guyver TV series, to which the range of people who came was astonishing. There were two grey-haired Japanese ladies who had been reading the manga from the day it started publication, and it's still running, as you know, and who were just thrilled and delighted. They got themselves seats in the front row, they sat there, they listened to my talk, they were, wow, right through the screening. There were a whole gaggle of 19 and 20-something guys who came up to me shyly and said, I used to buy that when it came out every week from Manga Entertainment. It was the coolest thing in my entire childhood, it was so great. Everybody just seemed to love and warm to this series. So my question for you would be, what was it about that particular series that got you to stay with anime?
What?
Loads of kids love a series, but they don't necessarily love the genre.
I think it was also during the time, because it was during the time of Power Rangers hype when it came out in America, and I remember my friend, the man who I consider the closest thing I have to an actual brother, he was the one who actually showed me, and he also showed me the second movie too. I watched the second movie before I saw the first movie, so I saw the better version. But it was, again, it definitely was something different. That was the first time I noticed something as different as far as anime, as far as violence and that stuff, and it compelled me, things like the suit living in him, which is really, you don't find that anywhere else in anime, or really any. The closest thing that anybody's ever came to is Blue Beetle has a similar thing.
Yes.
But for the longest time, really, nobody had an armor living in them. So that, and then the action, the violence, and really what was a great, compelling story just latched me onto it. And I'm like, I want to see more stuff like this. And so I would end up, when I found out the anime was on at 3 a.m. on Saturday mornings on Sci-Fi Channel, here I am being 8 years old, trying to desperately stay up on a Saturday night to watch 3 a.m. to see things like the first Tenchi movie and Venus Wars and shows like that, to watching things like Macross 2 Lovers Again on Movieplex. And then Toonami came in, it's blown up ever since.
Yeah. So really, it was kind of your gateway drug.
Yes. And then I needed to fix as much as I could find it.
And what do you think of the current popular shows? Do you see, what's the main difference you see between them and Guyver, apart from the fact that a lot of them are aimed at the female market, which Guyver obviously wasn't, although it has many loyal female fans?
I love the fact that there's a show for everyone. I think that's the great part about, and I think it's why so many people want to get people into anime, is that, you know, there's an anime for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's great that there's so many different genres. Even though I may not like every girl show, but at the same time, one of my favorite animes is Kaleido Star.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, it's all about the story.
Yeah.
I don't see genre or this is targeted at girls, this is targeted at boys. I see the story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's really cool. And I think your college work sounds really cool as well. That should be a
Thank you so much.
I mean, do feel free to get in touch if there's anything you to help or you need someone to bounce ideas off.
Oh, absolutely. It's fun to have the debate. And that's the thing I hope for, is that because it's an open debate. And because it's, like I said, it's all about how you view the world from your point of view. And again, one person on one point of the world has one point of view, where on another point of the world they have a different point of view. So it just creates a great conversation.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much. It has been such an honor.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And guys and girls, we'll be back with another interview in just a moment.